Okay, it is Thursday, June 12th. It is not often these days that I get to make videos that have good news. But today is one of those days, and I am extremely happy that this is a case that I've been following for over 3 months. Reading from the New York Times, yesterday there was a hearing, or a judge issued an order yesterday that bars the federal government from continuing to imprison a young man named Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil was a student organizer, protester at Columbia University in New York. He was a pro-Palestinian protester. And so, of course, the government and other groups labeled him a terrorist and pro-Hamas. And I think it was in March of this year, he was arrested in his home, outside of his home, either in New York or New Jersey, and he was taken to a federal detention facility in Louisiana. We'll come back to that in a minute. At the time, he was arrested under a provision of an arcane, very old law because Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who has turned out to be what a profound disappointment, this very old law that allows the Secretary of State to determine that someone's presence in the United States is inconsistent or harmful to United States foreign policy, and the Secretary of State can unilaterally decide to have that person deported. Mahmoud Khalil is a legal permanent resident. He has a green card. He is married to a United States citizen. He has been in federal detention for over 3 months. During that 3-month period of time, his wife gave birth to their first child, a son. I think his son's name is Dean. The government would not let him out of detention in order to attend the birth of his child. And he just met his son in person for the first time within the last 2 or 3 weeks. And why have they been holding him in Louisiana? Because they wanted any legal proceedings that he engaged in, or legal proceedings that he filed, to be within the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. That's Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, I think Alabama as well. The states covered by the Fifth Circuit. Why do they want it in the Fifth Circuit? Because the judges in the Fifth Circuit are fucking nuts. There are multiple Trump appointees to that bench. And there are multiple judges on that bench who, at every opportunity, have made it suspiciously clear that it's reasonable to question their loyalty to Donald Trump versus the Constitution. And so they're picking these student protesters up and they're shipping them to Louisiana. So that those cases will be venued in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. So, reading from the article, a federal judge on Wednesday barred the Trump administration from continuing to detain Mahmoud Khalil under a rarely cited law invoked by the Secretary of State, and suggested that Mr. Khalil could be released as early as Friday. What does that mean? That's a kind of a tortured way to write what happened. The judge ordered the government to release him, but stayed that order, meaning he paused that order until 9:30 a.m. on Friday morning to give the government time to appeal his order should they want to do that. As of right now, the government has not appealed this order that came from Judge Michael Farbiarz, Farbiarz. The order was issued at the end of the day yesterday, Wednesday, June 11th. Mr. Khalil was detained in March. To justify his arrest, Secretary of State Marco Rubio cited this rarely used law, saying that Mr. Khalil's presence in the United States threatens the country's foreign policy interests of preventing anti-Semitism. And yet Stephen Miller is, Deputy Chief of Staff in the White House, in and out of the Oval Office all day long. Judge Farbiarz had already found that the law itself is likely to be unconstitutional because it places all of that power unilaterally in the Secretary of State's hands with the language of the statute is incredibly vague, and there are no checks and balances on it whatsoever. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. The judge had already found that the law itself was likely to be constitutional, and on Wednesday, he found that Mr. Khalil had shown that he will be irreparably harmed if he's not released. Quote, Mr. Khalil's career and reputation are being damaged, and his speech is being chilled, and this adds up to irreparable harm, wrote the judge. But there is still an asterisk. The Trump administration has accused Mr. Khalil of willfully failing to disclose his membership in several organizations when he applied for his green card, allegations that Mr. Khalil's lawyers have contested fiercely. The judge wrote that it was overwhelmingly likely that Mr. Khalil would not be detained based solely on those allegations. But it is not clear if he would be released on Friday if the government were to argue that those allegations were, in fact, the reason for his detention, even though they've said they didn't say that when they picked him up. Still, the ruling marks a major victory for Mr. Khalil, a Columbia University graduate and legal permanent resident who played a leading role in pro-Palestinian demonstrations on the school's campus last year. He also acted as a liaison between the protesters and the school's administration. Mr. Khalil, whose wife and son are American citizens, has been held in Louisiana for 3 months. He has not been accused of a crime. And here's where, so think back to last week, Pam Bondi, it was Attorney General Pam Bondi, when they indicted Kilmar Abrego Garcia and brought him back to the United States from CCOT prison. They brought him back, and Pam Bondi gave this press conference detailing all of these horrific crimes that Kilmar Abrego Garcia had committed on U.S. soil. But yet they only charged him with 2 counts. They said that he solicited and received nude photos and videos from a minor. He was not charged with that. They said that he had been a member of MS-13 engaged in human trafficking within the United States for 9 years. They did not charge him with being a gang member. They did not charge him with aiding and abetting a gang. They said that he had engaged in more than 100 trips of trafficking undocumented immigrants within the United States. They charged him with 1 count. And the 1 count that they charged him with was a traffic stop from sometime in late 2022, where he was pulled over driving a Chevy Suburban in Tennessee. He was pulled over by Tennessee state troopers. He had 9 other young Latino Hispanic men in the vehicle with him, none of whom could be identified because none of them had identification. The government does not know whether those men were here in the United States legally or not, based on their own indictment. And so it's like they say all of this shit in press conferences and documents, but when it comes down to actual court pleadings where they have to be honest with the court, they say this much stuff and they charge them with that much stuff. Mahmoud Khalil, whose release was just ordered yesterday by a federal judge, has not been charged with 1 single crime. This administration has been saying all kinds of horrific and horrible things about him. They accused him of siding with Hamas, of supporting Hamas, of being a terrorist. And even this administration charged him with absolutely no crime, none. So it's like, look at what they file with the court. when you want to know what's real, you have to look at what they file with the court. But this is an amazing development for Mahmoud Khalil, and it looks like possibly tomorrow he may get to go home to his wife and newborn son. Amazing news.